pleased and welcomed to have RJ Lindstrom here today. So RJ, with that, let's please welcome RJ on behalf of Zephyr Manufacturing.
Hello, RJ Lindstrom, Zephyr Manufacturing. We are neither a new company or entrepreneurial as a company, but I've only been with the business for about 6 or 7 years now. So I'm very happy to be here to talk to you guys today. Zephyr is 90 years old, 91 this year. My great-grandfather started the company in 1927, so we have a long history, and we've been in Sedalia since 1932. What do we make? A lot of you probably know what we make, but we're most strongly associated with brooms, which is actually a product line that we bring in from Mexico. So what we actually manufacture in our building are wet mops, dust mops, and deck mops, which are up here. Different grades of quality, material, all sorts of different varieties of sizes and colors, something around 1,200 different products that we manufacture in our building right here in Sedalia. So in the spirit of 1 million cups, I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about what we've been up to lately. The customers that we sell to we target janitorial and sanitary supply distributors and also master wholesalers who turn around and sell our products to smaller distributors in different market segments. A lot of these are either in janitorial or paper products, office products, food service, and industrial accounts. And something that's relatively new to us, I'll talk about here in a little bit, is we also sell into hardware stores, which is the retail channel of distribution. So what we've done lately that we're proud of, over the years, a lot of mop manufacturers and our competitors, and us included, had gone overseas to buy a lot of finished product, including the mops that we're manufacturing here. We'd go find a cheaper version of it in some other country like Pakistan or India or China. And at a certain point, we decided that we were going to start making those products here. So we found a supplier for the raw materials instead of the finished goods, which nobody really wanted to do because they wanted to make more money on putting the product together themselves. But we finally talked somebody into it, and now we're bringing all that material into Sedalia and manufacturing it and selling it, and we're competitive with the imported product across the country. And the big thing here is that we can bring in 2 different types of yarn, and we went from 4 products to 25 products that we can sell in that category. So we have a much better selection for our customers. We can customize product, private label, etc. So it really expanded the program for us, and it's made in America, which is a big selling point these days. And the other thing is just in October, so we're still pretty much in the middle of this, we acquired the assets of a competitor called Little Rock Broom Works in Little Rock, Arkansas. And this is exciting for 2 reasons, is they were almost primarily selling into hardware stores, which we were not. So that opened up an entire channel of distribution for their products and our products that we didn't have before. And the other exciting part was they were making one corn broom in their factory in Little Rock, Arkansas. It's this one I've got up here. It's called the Airlight. It's a household broom, but what makes it unique is that instead of being wound onto the handle like the typical corn broom, which is very labor intensive and why the products are made in Mexico, this broom is actually glued onto the handle, which allows us to make it here in Sedalia. So as the world goes full circle, we are making brooms again in our factory 20 or 30 years after the last time we did. So we're very excited about that, and it's a very fast-selling product for their hardware store customers, and we're going to expand it into our customers in the janitorial supply industry. So what sort of struggles do we have? The first, competing with larger manufacturers. In our industry, we're pretty small compared to a lot of our competitors, and that poses its own sort of problems with price pressure and delivery schedules and location of our building. And we also compete with a lot of importers, like I mentioned. So there's a lot of companies that barely own a warehouse, and they just bring the product in from overseas and sell to our distributors at a reduced margin. So we compete with that pretty much every day. And competitors that sell what we call cheater mops. A lot of our products are sold in ounce weights, and they'll label it as one thing and actually sell less product than what's on the label. And that's become more and more prevalent in recent years and creates cost pressure for those of us that remain honest to try to hit a price point that's unfair. As a company, lack of innovation. I joke because the last new product we came up with, we launched in 2011, and we haven't really come up with anything since. And that's not just us. There's not really a lot of room for innovation in mops and brooms. But if we were able to come up with something new, I know we could open up a new category, new channel of distribution, new customers, or just get excitement about our products that we don't have now. And while being 90 years old is great in many, many facets, it's also its own sort of problem with 90 years of inertia and tradition, and that's the way we've always done it mentality. We fight that both internally and with our customers. A lot of our customers won't buy anything but one specific mop because that's what they've been buying for 30 or 40 years. And if you change the color or the stitch pattern or the name of the product, it just throws them into a tizzy sometimes. So, and on a local level, something we've struggled with is finding a workforce here in Sedalia. And it's just the last probably 12 or 18 months, mostly driven from what we can tell the low unemployment. But we use a temp agency to bring in new employees, and we go through 5 or 6 or more employees before we find somebody that will make it to the 90 days and come on full time. And it's mostly just finding somebody who's willing to come in and work a full day and work a full week, week after week. And there's nothing terribly demanding about the type of labor we use, but sometimes we just can't find anybody to stick around. So that's been an issue for us lately. So that's pretty much all I had. Move into the Q&A section here. If anybody has questions.
I do. You told me this is my first plant tour at Zephyr. Tell me the difference between that broom and a plastic broom.
This one's made with a natural fiber, and a plastic broom's made with plastic fiber. But I think what you're getting at is so the fiber that's in this broom it's an actual crop that's grown almost entirely in Mexico now, but it used to be grown in the Midwest and a lot of it in Illinois when the manufacturing was still in the United States. But it's a sorghum plant, and it's got little hairs on it that hold on to dust. Which is why it makes a good product for making brooms and sweeping. And the angle brooms that are becoming more and more popular, which is what you'll see at pretty much every retail outlet that you go to, they try to mimic that with the plastic fiber and splitting the ends so that it's what they call flag to hold on to the dust. But almost nothing beats the natural product. So
you said that it's kind of in vogue now to have a product made in the U.S. Is your product more expensive when it is, and what kind of premium will your customers pay for the made in the U.S.? Do you have a feel for it?
Yeah, I mean, the product is more expensive. We can sell a much larger broom than this that's made from in Mexico and sell it for the same price or less. We're pretty new on the broom side for what's made in the U.S., like what a customer would pay a premium for. My general feeling is in a retail market, they're going to be more willing to pay a premium on the retail side than they will be on the Zephyr, we'll call it the Zephyr commercial industrial side, because the people who are buying our product there tend to be they're just a buyer. They sit at a desk all day and buy it, and they don't really understand the product or who's using it, so they buy what their customers demand that they buy. So it takes a lot more to get them through. But when we moved the mop manufacturing from, say, importing from Pakistan to manufacturing in our facility, we were actually able to keep the price point the same. And we haven't, and that was 2 or 3 years ago, and the price has been about the same since. So we haven't demanded a premium for American made. It's just something for us to talk about and to get people interested, because on that side, it tends to be more of a feel good than an actual monetary difference, if that makes sense.
RJ, you said that when you acquired the Little Rock, you were able to put that into the hardware stores. Now, so it's, if you wanted to buy one, not being in an industrial business, would you have to go to Arkansas to get it?
No, the big customer that we have now is it's a company called Orgill, and they sell to independent hardware store chains. So they're a lot like an Ace or a True Value, but they don't brand like Ace and True Value do. So there's and so they tend to be in more rural areas, but it would be a store like Tractor Supply, but it would be like Bob's Feed Store. They would buy from Orgill, and they get all their retail needs from the master distributor. And we, like I said, we've only been selling to them for 2 months now, and I don't know where our product ends up yet because we're not that familiar with them. But we also have a website. This is kind of a new thing for Zephyr. Only sold to distributors, and Little Rock actually sold the Airlight broom on a website to individual people, and even took mail orders from mostly United Methodist women groups and household women mostly. We get a lot of letters about how great the Airlight broom is. But you can go to shopairlight.com and buy this broom 6 at a time and get them shipped anywhere you want in the 48 states. So, yeah.
You said that having the Made in America brand on your products is a feel-good that helps sales in some respect. Do you also find that to be the case being a family-owned, multi-generational company, that some of your clients or customers appreciate that?
They do. The unfortunate part is the type of customer that really appreciates it and would buy from us over somebody else would be somebody like a local distributor, somebody else that's family owned, which, like any other industry, they're getting bought up and consolidated. And even the small mom and pop distributors are, multi-state kind of corporations now. There's not a lot of, we used to probably have 3 or 4 times as many customers that bought half as much as they do now. But they were, they've all been bought up, gone out of business. So you look at our list of top 10 customers and they're all corporations, and corporations tend not to care. They whoever you're talking to may tell you that, family owned is great, but if your price is high, it doesn't lend much to you. So, yeah.
You talked about innovation and new product line. So you created a new product at one time, but another way you've innovated is buying a product line.
Right.
So for other people that have businesses, talk about that strategy of innovation. Which is the best strategy? Buying a product line from another company? Or?
Right. Well, it's a matter of, I think it would be very different if you're making and selling a product in a category where there's a little bit more room for innovation. But mops and brooms, people have been making mops and brooms just like they have been since 1927 and before. So there's not really a better way to make a cotton cut-in mop. And there are different ways to make brooms, which is kind of where the plastic angle brooms have come in. People like those a little better. You can make them look better for retail stores and that sort of thing. But over the years, there's just not that much room for innovation. So in order to get something new to us, buying it was a very good idea. But it's also expensive and a lot riskier than trying to come up with it on your own. But as a manufacturer, if I wanted to come up with something like this on my own, it would have involved quite a bit more work, and the idea would have had to come up. But there's a custom mold for the cone. It's a custom colored handle. You got to find a source for brand new raw materials. So there's a lot that goes into it. Whereas if you just basically buy the product, buy out the company, it's a turnkey operation. And even the equipment came with the deal. So we couldn't have made this in our building without buying them because we didn't have the expertise on the equipment. So we got the training involved in that. But with a little bit more elbow grease, I think, coming up with your own idea that's truly innovative, I think would always be a better plan. But we felt in our particular industry, we couldn't really come up with anything that was worth selling. So, yeah.
So RJ, you're fourth generation leadership at Zephyr, right?
Mhm.
Most of the time when we have somebody on that stage, they talk about themselves, right? So you kind of skipped over that. How did you assume the leadership or buy the company? Talk about that process, the succession plan that brought you here today leading the company.
So when I went to college, my dad specifically told me that I did not have a job with him when I graduated. And he told my sister the same thing. So it was a go to school for what you want to go to school for, get a degree in what you want, and then get a job for at least 3 to 5 years, and then we'll talk. But there's nothing on the table before that. And for my sister, she found a different passion and a different job and wasn't interested in this at all. When I'd been out of school for 3 years when I came back to Sedalia to work for my dad. And I worked from the ground floor up for about a year. I worked in every manufacturing cell in the company for at least 2 or 3 weeks each location. I did shipping and receiving for a couple of months to get a feel for all the products and all the customers and how that part of the operation works. And then I went. We have 2 full-time sales guys, and I shadowed them across the country for 3 months, traveling every week to different parts of the country to see all of our current customers and new customers before I even had a desk in the office. So at that point, I worked in the office and trained with everybody in the office. So I did the customer service and the accounting and payroll and plant manager operations. I did all of that for another 3 or 4 months before, I had my own title and I even got my own phone calls. So I was just learning for a long time. And then, if any of you know my dad, he was ready to retire long before I started. So pretty much as soon as he could, he started traveling more. And I kind of got promoted up to president. And then in 2011, we set up a deal where I bought the company from him. So,
What was the most challenging or daunting piece of that for you? Were there any pieces that you thought, oh my gosh, I didn't see this coming?
No, I mean, I was lucky in the sense that my dad took care of the details, and he wasn't going to make me fight for it. Basically, it was a good, fair deal for both of us. He got his money out of the company, but I didn't have to take on an inordinate amount of risk. He basically didn't laden me with the debt that would cause the business to struggle. But anything you get for free, you don't respect. So I think the biggest challenge on that whole thing was on day one, I had a lot of debt. I still do have a lot of debt. So, and when I think I was 28, 29 at the time. So to be that age and to take on that amount of fiscal responsibility. And as time went on, another thing that, weighs heavy on you is I have 45 or so people that rely on me for jobs. And, just the thought of if I do this, am I going to keep all my employees, are they going to be busy and happy? Or are we going to grow or are we not going to grow? So there's a lot of responsibility involved in that.
So do you have an R&D department or anyone that's always trying to figure out a new product?
You're looking at them. You're looking at the head of many departments in our company because we are relatively small in the grand scheme of things. So again, as owner, IT department, R&D, sales manager, all that stuff. It still falls on my desk, but no, we don't. We have, like I said, we had 2 full-time sales guys, and they kind of constantly see what the competition is up to, what our customers are selling that's not ours, or what is ours, what works and doesn't work, and those ideas come back to me. But that's kind of the extent of the R&D department.
So also, when you were out on the floor doing each and every job, did you figure out there's some things that needed to be changed?
Absolutely. Yeah. And we're still changing them, but yeah. And that was one of those naive young man sort of things that the second I got back in the office, I wanted to change all sorts of things on the factory floor, and the 90 years of inertia hit me across the head and told me I couldn't do it. So we had quite a few struggles just rearranging a manufacturing cell to be a little bit more lean and in line. Oh boy, it was a challenge. And a lot of the employees, not that they didn't respect me, but a lot of them been running those machines for 20, 30 years. So they know better than I do what moving it 3 feet that way is going to do to them. So.
You mentioned your struggle with the workforce. Would you say it's more of a situation with just available numbers, or pay scale, or work ethic?
Yes. I think the driving force, because up until a couple of years ago, when unemployment was at a little bit more manageable level, I mean, in my opinion, where we're at now in this county is an effective zero. There's whatever the unemployment's at, there's that certain number of people that are out there are unemployable to a certain degree for one reason or another. So it's a lot of that. I often wonder if we don't pay enough. If we pay more, we would get higher quality employees. But I talk with a lot of the other manufacturers in town. I know a lot of the plant managers and owners and upper management in these companies, and no matter what they're paying, they all kind of have the same problem. Now, they may not be able to find somebody that can run a CNC machine, which is a different problem than not being able to find somebody that can't show up or won't show up, but we all have the same problems. So if I raise my pay scale, I'd be competing with trained labor versus untrained labor. So a little bit of that.
As a major employer in this area, which I guess we obviously are, how can we address this?
I mean, that's a good question. There are several committees active in town through economic development and the workforce board that are working pretty closely with the community college and even the Sedalia 200 school district to try to. There's several facets going on, but there's groups that are trying to make manufacturing seem less down and dirty. Much like the Mike Rowe, if you guys follow what he does at all, it's not everybody's made to go to a 4-year university and come out and be an accountant, So there's a lot of that starting in elementary schools, familiarizing students with manufacturing and how many people in this town, in particular, are employed through manufacturing. We're a very blue collar town. Almost every, a strong percentage of the town and these kids' parents work for a manufacturer. And changing the perspective that it's seen as not a bad place to go to work, and not like a disappointment versus making it to a 4-year university. There's a group that works through homecoming, trying to attract people to move back to Sedalia, come home. A lot of people graduate high school and want to leave. Anybody who that grew up here knows that feeling. You graduate and you leave, but then it kind of calls you home sometimes. So there's that, and working with the community college to make sure that the right students are trained in the right, whether it's CNC or welding or mechanical jobs, and making sure that fits what's available in the workforce, the jobs that are open. And all those things are in place, but a lot of those are 20-year plans. You can't change the makeup of a local workforce overnight. So.
Okay, RJ, I have the last question.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for getting up here. It takes a lot of vulnerability to get up here and talk about your business, so we appreciate that. What can we as a community do for you?
Well, I knew the question was coming, and I thought about it. And since we don't really sell locally, there's not a lot that can be done specifically in this town. But I think just the mentality of buying locally made, buying locally manufactured, or made at a minimum made in America products could go a long ways to changing the economic landscape in the country, and it comes all the way down to local businesses. But when you look around, there's a lot of really good products that are manufactured right here in Sedalia that are sold all throughout the country, and just any support you can give to those companies would be much appreciated. So,
thank you, RJ, and thank you for keeping Zephyr here and growing the company in Sedalia. We embrace the company, and we're here to see this growth happen. So, thank you very much.
all right. Thank you.